Greetings and welcome to the Dan O'Can YouTube channel. I am standing here at the Bus Rapid Transit Station at the entrance to Heritage Park. Now, we've visited Heritage Park here in Calgary on multiple occasions on the channel, but we're here today to check out one specific artifact. So sitting here right by the transit station and protected by a fence is CPR Steam Locomotive 5931. But to tell its story, we need to move about 7.5 kilometers north of here to today what is Shaw Millennium Park in downtown Calgary. Let's head there now. Now, you may be wondering what an urban skate park has to do with a 1950s era steam locomotive. And I'll get to that, but before I do, let's do some quick background on the class of locomotives known as Selkirks. They were designed to haul heavy loads between Calgary and Revelstoke, BC across the Selkirk Mountains. They were built using a 2-10-4 wheel configuration, 2 lead wheels, 10 driving wheels, and 4 trailing wheels. Being almost 100 feet long and weighing more than 250 tons, they were considered the largest steam locomotives in the British Empire. Now, that's a fact that some folks dispute. That's an argument I don't care to get involved with, so I'll leave that to the experts to fight out in the comment section. A total of 36 Selkirk locomotives were built for the CPR by the Montreal Locomotive Works. Initially, there were 20 built in 1929, an additional 10 in 1938, and the final 6 were manufactured in 1949. They remained in service, performing various duties through the 1950s and were gradually phased out in favor of diesel-electric locomotives. Only 2 Selkirks remain today. One of them is at the Canadian Railway Museum in Quebec, and the other is the one we saw sitting at the entrance to Heritage Park here in Calgary. So again, I'm sure you're wondering, well, if the locomotive's at Heritage Park, what are you doing in downtown Calgary? And I do promise, I'll get to that. But first, let's talk about how one of these locomotives came to be preserved in Calgary in the first place. The reason why Calgary has a Selkirk is the direct result of one man's vision, Ken Liddell. You will recall I introduced you to Ken back in episode 207 here on Dan O'Can. I'll give you the Coles Notes version here. So, quick aside for our American viewers, you may know them as Cliff Notes, but here in Canada they're known as Coles Notes. And believe it or not, Coles Notes actually predate Cliff's Notes. Do other countries have something similar? Like maybe I should just call it the Reader's Digest version? Either way, comment below and let me know. Back to the video. Ken was a journalist and author who was born in Saskatchewan and moved to Alberta and spent the bulk of his career telling the stories of the prairies. He is the spiritual grandfather of DanO'Can.com and what we try to do here on the channel. On August 10th, 1955, in his column in the Calgary Herald, Ken lamented the disappearance of the steam era of the railway, and he felt we were on the verge of losing something important. He talks about how the youth of the 50s would not know the thundering sounds of steam locomotives and that there should be something tangible to serve as a reminder of what once was. The idea gained immediate traction. I'm quite sure there are a great many rail fans who, like myself, would eagerly welcome the opportunity of having one of those big boys placed on view in a suitable location where it could stand as an imposing monument to a rapidly disappearing era. The good old days of railroading before the steamer and that never-to-be-forgotten melancholy whistle were replaced by the growler and its sick, calf-like air horn. Dan Wood, Calgary, August 16th, 1955. This magnificent example of Canadian engineering and the Canadian Pacific Railway design will disappear, and I think our children will be the poorer if they are not to know the 5900s which played such an intimate role in our Western transportation history. Puffing Billy, Calgary, August 16th, 1955. I heartily endorse Ken Liddell's suggestion for the preservation in Calgary of a Canadian Pacific 5900 series locomotive. In my opinion, the sleek Selkirks represent not only power, but are a monument to man's ingenuity in the Iron Horse age. A.F. McQueen, Medicine Hat, August 29th, 1955. Now, it just so happens that the Calgary Tourism and Convention Association was looking for a place to build a new tourist information center, and they decided that the Selkirk would be a great centerpiece and attraction for their new facility. So the plan was hatched for Calgary Tourism and Convention Association to buy Locomotive 5934 and move it to downtown Calgary to form the centerpiece of their new facility. Now, if you were really paying attention, you might say 5934, but the locomotive at Heritage Park is 5931. Where does 5934 come into play? So when city officials went down to the rail yards to look at Locomotive 5934, they found it to be in much worse condition than they expected. However, there was another locomotive nearby, which was number 5931, and they decided they wanted to use that one instead. But because they had started an advertising and publicity campaign using Locomotive 5934, they did the most logical thing, and they simply repainted 5931 so that it appeared to be 5934. With the deal complete, plans were made to move the Selkirk from the CP yard to downtown Calgary, then to Mewata Park, where the Calgary Tourism and Convention Association were going to build their new facility. So that's what I'm doing in downtown Calgary as part of this story. While today it's home to an urban skate park and Shaw Millennium Park, back in the day, all of this was part of Mewata Park. Mewata Park was famous for being home to Mewata Stadium, home of the Calgary Stampeders until they moved to McMahon Stadium in 1960. The stadium was over in that area there beside Mewata Armory and stood there until 1999 when it was demolished to make way for the skate park and the redevelopment of these lands into Shaw Millennium Park. So while many things have changed, one thing has not. The park lands are separated from the railway tracks by 9th Avenue. So how does one move a locomotive which weighs nearly 4,500 pounds across the road? By building a temporary railway track, of course. Yes, in August of 1959, the Selkirk was pushed off the CP main line onto a temporary section of rail. There were some challenges getting a unit this big to navigate the tight corners necessary to get it into position, but they managed. The crowds turned out to see the behemoth come to what they assumed at the time would be its final resting place. Calgary Tourism would build its new facility in the style of a railway station. The main reception desk was housed in the ticket window, and people were able to climb aboard the Selkirk while learning all about what Calgary and area had to offer. And that's where I'm going to leave things for this part of the episode. There's a lot more to the Selkirk story, as you can gather by the fact that it's not here anymore. But we'll pick that up in part 2. Stay tuned.